Today's shout out is for Zuldinga. Golos versus Satya. Decided to keep this hand obviously. Our opponent starts things off with a Guide of Souls that only triggers on his own creatures entering. And then we see a Dance of the Dead, so we'll get the tap land in first I think. Enlightened Tutor isn't going to get anything like Soul Ring or anything because it's banned in this format. We do have a totally separate ban list in Duel Commander. So now seeing a Riddlegate Gargoyle. And they did gain a life with that. They've got some energy now as well, so in this swings and they get even more energy. So turn 2 immediately, get themselves into a 3/4 Flying Angel. I'm wondering if with 7 cards in hand, is it worth... This doesn't have Vigilance, does it? I'm wondering if it's worth discarding this just for the Dance of the Dead, but yeah, it stays tapped with this unfortunately. Right, we've got Command Tower there as well. So, yeah, can't hold up Assassin's Trophy, unfortunately. Let's just go for Charter Course. That can set up the Dragon for us a bit faster, or a lot faster actually, now that we've just played a land for the turn. Alright, Shallow Grave is actually better than Dance of the Dead, so discard the Dragon. Swinging in with everything again. Only got 1 energy at the moment, so hitting us, holding up mana, so probably safe to assume that they've got some kind of counter magic. So does this thing have haste? I forgot all about the clause on this we have to exile. I just saw that it's an instant. So let's go Tundra. We'll try Dance of the Dead. See if our opponent's got removal for the dragon. And then we can always go Enlightened Tutor and try and get into something during our opponent's turn. Yep, they have the counter in Wash Away. I'll make them counter the Enlightened Tutor perhaps on their turn. Our opponent's already got us down to 12. We're going to take another hit for 5 this turn. Now shows us his commander, gains life and makes another energy. And his commander does have haste, so that's 6, 7, 8 damage. And I don't imagine we're long for this world. So maybe if we thought he had counter magic, which we were assuming he did, would have been worth going for the Frantic Search. Again, I'm saying it all week during these videos, but I'm learning the format and the types of cards that we're going to be facing off against. Maybe it would have been best holding up the Frantic Search so that we could go for Shallow Grave as a block. Especially if we could have had the dragon die. I'm not sure if we could have done. Anyway, a copy of the Angel, or the Human Cleric, has come down. Multiple plus counters on Satya. And I'll go for Enlightened Tutor. I don't see what we're going to grab and put on top of our library with this, but Necromancy. There's Animate Dead as well, which is less mana. We'll just go for that. So might as well go for a land into the Frantic Search just to look at the top cards. And there's a Thoughtseize. We could just kill ourselves with that. That's probably going to be the most fun thing. Necromancy ended up on top anyway. So get rid of Shallow Grave and the Flash. And we'll cast the Animate Dead onto the dragon. Oh, we've only got 1 black mana, haven't we? So we can't Thoughtseize ourselves out of the game. Oh well. Swing in with 2-headed Hydra. Draw 2 cards just for the fun of it. And yeah, we were never getting into anything. Not worthy. The Sylvan Primordial is unbanned in Duel Commander, so be interesting to get some plays with that going. There's plenty of cards in Duel Commander that are banned in Commander but unbanned in Duel. Anyhow, our opponent just swings in with everything. He's definitely going to get lethal on us here after that rapid start. So a bunch of energy triggers all over the place. Gets a copy of this thing to get some more energy on the stack. And gives the original Riddlegate Gargoyle a buff. So it's 3 damage, 4 damage, 5 damage from the commander. Don't think there's any commander damage in Duel Commander. I'm not seeing it separated here anyway. Yeah, it's probably worth knowing, although I doubt it'll ever be of any relevance. Let's continue on, see if we can do better in the next one. Alright, a couple of cards here. We could discard the Sylvan Primordial on our second turn and go for a turn 3 Exhume. Which is, yeah, bit clunky, but I see that the World Gorger Dragon combo is in here, which I can't even remember. I think you do this with Animate Dead and Dance of the Dead, don't you? Yeah, let's go for keeping that. I'm not going to go for discarding the Sylvan Primordial. Actually, we don't draw on turn 1, do we? So it'll take us a number of turns to do that. No Surveil lands, so let's just go for the Overgrown Tomb. We've got Jewels and Shocks to choose from. Alright, and Esper Sentinel, we can do something about that with the Winterbloom command, or Witherbloom command. I'll wait on the Witherbloom until next turn just so that we can pay the tax on Esper Sentinel. So that means that this can be a Volcanic Island, I think. Argument to be made, maybe I should have just gone for the Witherbloom command while we had the chance, but he's not holding up mana now anyway. Selfless Spirit will not help him with the minus of the command, so that's fine. Urborg shouldn't help our opponent either, so let's get that into play. And it can be the Witherbloom. So -3, -1, and I'll go for mill and return a land to hand. So that is self-mill, minus on the Esper Sentinel. Then Esper Sentinel triggers for the final time, hopefully. Only downside of this is with Exhume in hand, we are giving our opponent something to reanimate, but we don't have anything to make use of with Exhume here anyway. Might put something in the bin though. No, Enlightened Shooter and a Thoughtseize. Let's just grab the Badlands. Maybe could have gone for a fetch there actually, because we've got the Urborg available to us. Fix our colours a bit better. A Gunjo being played as a land, and we get hit for 2 by the Selfless Spirit. Alright, Inquisition I don't mind seeing, so let's have a look at our opponent's hand here. Alright, deciding on Mental Misstep, so he's got something cheap in hand that he wants to protect by the looks of it. We'll go for the tap land with the Flooded Strand, and yeah, if we go for our commander next turn maybe, we can at least Exhume it if it gets countered. 2 damage from the Selfless Spirit again, and let's get a Shock Land into play tapped. We don't have any white mana at the moment, so we'll just go white and blue into play tapped. Let's go Tainted Pact here. I don't think we've got Thoracle combo, but it's just a means of getting to whatever card we like at instant speed, I imagine, this Tainted Pact. Again, I'm pointing it out every video, but I'm net decking these while I learn the format, so... Alright, there's a flash on top. Whatever, we'll just keep the flash. I've exiled a bunch of stuff here. Just gone past all that with the Tainted Pact. So flash goes into the hand, we've got access to Sylvan Primordial, could maybe set up a combo with the World Gorger Dragon. Not that I can remember the combo at this point, but then we've got more reanimation as well. Do we exile with the flash or just sacrifice? It is a sacrifice. Yeah, so I think my opponent is going to counter the Golos here, but we'll certainly make him use it. And now thinking about something, if it's spot removal that he's got in hand, then he's going to have to use that once Golos already hits play. Yeah, it's a wash away he was holding up. We'll not bother returning Golos to the command zone, that can stay in the graveyard. Okay, the hasty commander comes into play, Satya, so we're going to take 5 damage. We're already at 13 unfortunately, but hopefully we'll be able to get down the Sylvan Primordial next turn. So making a copy of this thing, that is 2, 4, 6, 7 damage, so knocks us down to 6. Has 2 energy available, so is able to keep the Selfless Spirit. And there's a Priest of Fell Rites, is going to be too slow I think. Let's flash in the Sylvan Primordial. When does it get sacrificed? Straight away, which means we can then go for the Exhume straight after. And our opponent probably going wide on us at that point, annoyingly. Whatever, we'll go for the flash now. Obviously can do it at instant speed, but the Exhume is a sorcery, so throw down the Primordial. We will not pay the cost, so it gets exiled or sacrificed straight away. But the Sylvan Primordial will get rid of the blue mana, and we'll just grab a Shockland. It can be a Breeding Pool in tapped. Then let's Exhume. So our opponent is going to be able to grab that Esper Sentinel. Kept cards out of his hand at least, but I don't think it's going to be good enough here. Haven't actually done the maths. We will get rid of a red source. And Sylvan Primordium can get another Shockland into play tapped. So we're seeing what we want to do with the deck at least. That is 7 mana that we've got available to us. Just want to be dragging the game out long enough to be able to not lose to like aggro decks like this. So we've got Satya dealing 3 to us, and then we can only block a flyer, and then the other 2 go wide, yeah, so yeah, and then of course they get another copy of the Selfless Spirit as well, so go through to blocks, just block the original Selfless Spirit, doesn't really matter at this point. They might as well sacrifice that in response to give everything else indestructible, and they do. But definitely going wide on us here, so the wash away just bought them a turn enough to win that one, I think. Otherwise we would have had a decent blocker in play to block a lot of this damage. But it's fun going back to Golos again. I think I'll try one more game with it while I'm slowly getting the hang of it and see if we can do better in the next one. Golos versus Phlage this time, and Is Ponder going to get us into anything relevant? Yeah, I'm not in love with that hand, but I don't know what a good hand looks like in this deck, to be honest, so we'll just try it. We're on the draw at least. Alright, a Limdul's Vault should be able to fix the top cards quite well, so let's go for the Underground Sea. Yeah, losing the shuffle effect off the Limdul's Vault isn't necessarily the best, but we'll just have to play around it as best we can. Alright, there's a Scalding Tarn, Brainstorm as well. Yeah, let's go Priest, Scalding Tarn, and draw into the Brainstorm. So that way we're drawing into another fetch next turn, ready for the Limdul's Vault potentially. A Skrelv on turn 1 by the Boros player. Alright, so we definitely want a blue source so that we can make some Dimir mana next turn, so play the Scalding Tarn and we can do Limdul's Vault at the end of our opponent's turn. Swings in for a toxic damage straight away, and we'll crack the Scalding Tarn for a blue source so that we can go Limdul's Vault here. So here we get to look at the top 5 cards of our library as many times as we choose and try and put a decent stack of 5 cards on top. So there we've got Spellseeker, Unmarked Grave I don't really like. We want some discard and reanimation really. So pay a life, put them on the bottom in any order. There's a Worldly Tutor, Collective Brutality, Faithless Looting could work, but again we don't have any reanimation. So there we see Buried Alive, a Liliana of the Veil is removal as well, that could work. This is 3 damage to any target though, so Lily's likely to go down. Say yes again. Getting rid of a lot of cards here. Right, Dance of the Dead is reanimation. Careful Study is discard as well, so we will say no and keep these on top. It can be land, Deluge, Dance, and Careful Study on the very top. So obviously draw into the Careful Study this turn. Let's go for the Careful Study straight away, which is draw 2, discard 2. We've got 2 big creatures to discard here. So get rid of Coma and Ashen Rider. And then we want a black source, so this can be a Badlands, I think should be safe enough. And we can get rid of lands with Ashen Rider, so let's go Dance of the Dead. Although Coma is a lot more obnoxious, but I think Ashen Rider does a lot more damage if they've got swords or something, so go for the Dance, which does of course reanimate, so we'll go after the Sunbaked Canyon. A shame that that's a pain land, but taking them down to 1 land on turn 3 is pretty obnoxious. Cracking the Marsh Flats in response, and so they can do something with 2 mana, we'll assume. They get a Samwise the Stout-Hearted into play. Choose a permanent in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. It's returned to hand, so they just put the fetch back, so they can at least make a second land here. They do have a Ring Bearer as well, of course. Not sure how relevant that'll be, but play the Marsh Flats again. And this time hitting us for 3. So let's go for the Brainstorm here. This will help us decide if we want to go for the Dance of the Dead or not, because we have to pay 2 to untap with this. It's a fixed Animate Dead. Our opponent holding priority to the Brainstorm, so I'm wondering if he has some counter magic available to him. Yeah, we get into an untapped land here, so we could go for Toxic Deluge. Let's go Bajuka Bog, because a tap land's going to be a bit of a pain. We can put Volcanic Island back as well, so that we can shuffle. Yeah, let's do that. We'll say no to Dance of the Dead. Draw into the Volcanic Island, but I do want to shuffle away that Bajuka Bog, so go for Marsh Flats. We'll grab ourselves a white source finally. And the Deluge will cost us 1 life. So successfully wiping the board with that, we will hand it over to our opponent and see how many lightning bolts we can start taking to Phlage. Maybe in hindsight an army of 3/3s would have been good, but I was fully expecting our opponent to have a swords or some kind of removal. Maybe they're just choosing not to remove this, although it triggers on death, not exile, so hard to say really. They get, okay, cracking this during their main phase for a Surveil. Throw a Wrath of God into the bin, and then it was a Helping Hand. Return a creature, mana value 3 or less from graveyard to the battlefield tapped, so they got Samwise back, which means they get the Marsh Flats back, so it makes sense why they went slow on the land cracks there. Dance of the Dead triggering again. I think we're just going for Golos here, to be honest. Draw into Unmarked Grave, searching for a non-legendary, putting it into the graveyard. So play out Golos, not seeing any kind of counters or anything. Definitely go for a tapped Shockland here. And we do have access to the World Tree as well, which might be an idea. There's Volrath's Stronghold as well. I think we'll go for the World Tree. Cracking Marsh Flats for the Shockland, getting all their jewels out. And now seeing a Blood Moon from our opponent. And at 2 damage coming in towards us. Yeah, they draw and discard. They discarded the Skyclave Apparition when they did that. Golos has greater power, so it can't block the Samwise. Arid Mesa is a mountain as well. So can't pay for the Dance of the Dead now if I'd want to. Yeah, because a lot of these decks play Tainted Pact, you don't often get into enough basics to play around something like a Blood Moon or the Merfolk that does it for islands. Something I've noticed. So yeah, I'm not sure how we're supposed to play around that, if we're supposed to use these fetches to grab ourselves basics straight away. Anyway, might as well just swing in. There's nothing we can do with a heap of red lands available to us. And like I said, we couldn't block this anyway. It's likely we just go down to the Lightning Helixes from the Phlage, swing in, and they draw and discard to the ring again. Discard a Felia. I've also net decked this one. Then Fiery Confluence, that took us out. That must have been 3 damage, I think. Oh no, 2 damage to each opponent, and you can do that 3 times. So take us down to -1. I'm not sure if we could have done too much of anything. I could have gone for the Archon that can gain us some life, but there was no means of reanimating it anyway. Draw a couple of cards. We had a Traxxas coming, but yeah, just didn't get into quite enough reanimation there. So with a lack of basics here, I think we're just having to hope that we don't see the Blood Moon again. Okay, we've got 3 lands there. Quite like the Grizzlebrand, but there's no means of us reanimating it. We'll just have to hope for something off the top. Keep that and let's get rid of Tasiga. Watery Grave can go in tapped on turn 1. Playing a land and passing. I'm just wondering, okay, Abrupt Decay. We can actually hold up on our opponent's turn, so get down the Tiger. Won't bother with the Collective Brutality until we can maybe get rid of a creature. And we might be able to pull from tomorrow for 1 into X and discard the Grizzlebrand with that. Obviously we can discard with this as well. Alright, there's a Dam, so get down the land and we'll hold up the pull from tomorrow, like I said. Throwing out the Felia at flash speed. Skrelv coming into play as well. I don't mind blowing that up with the Collective Brutality. So we'll go through to the beginning of combat, and it can be Abrupt Decay onto Felia. A Gataxian Probe can look at our opponent's hand as well. We want to draw into a land here, really. Is there something else that we're going to draw into that makes me wish that we didn't take the shock? Well, we're going Collective Brutality either way, I think. So cast it, -2/-2, and an opponent reveals their hand. And we'll discard the Grizzlebrand in order to escalate it. Alright, and what have they got? The Mana Tithe is worth playing around. Legion Leadership, first strike, double the power. Fiery Confluence, I think, is the thing to go after here. Flame Slash. Hopefully doesn't do too much of anything. So we'll get rid of the Confluence. And seeing as how they've got Mana Tithe, we'll go for Gataxian Probe with 2 life. Simply to draw a card. That just drew us into Sylvan Primordial, so yeah, lack of mana, lack of reanimation, giving our opponent too much time for my liking. We can't even tap out into Pull from Tomorrow unless we want to force him to use that Mana Tithe. Keeps the Savell card on top after cracking the fetch into the Elegant Parlour. And seeing the Phlage hit play for the first time. So is forced to sacrifice it and Lightning Helix us. We go down to 15, he's up to 22. Does put it back in the command zone though, so that'll cost him 5 mana to get that back out, which I'm assuming he's going to be able to do next turn. There's a Swords to Plowshares for us. Yeah, we're just encouraging them to Mana Tithe our Pull from Tomorrow, I think. Just so that we don't have to keep playing around it. Den of the Bugbear for our opponent is a tap land, so couldn't afford the commander again. Let's Pull from Tomorrow. And if they do decide to allow this, they might think that we're baiting them, which we kind of are. If they allow it, then we can at least go for the Sylvan Primordial into the bin. Alright, they do allow it, so throw that away. We did manage to draw into a swamp. And there's another land as well. I'll play the swamp just in case we see that Badlands again. Or the Blood Moon even, not the Badlands. Can this counter anything? Yeah, counter a target spell, so it's a 6 mana Golos that we need to aim for. Another land our opponent has top decked into. So animating Den of the Bugbear. I wouldn't really mind a Swords to Plowshares on this, to be honest, but we don't have any white mana. So taking a hit for 4, going down to 10. Whilst we've got a Pain land in play. Alright, Unmarked Grave, again loading up the graveyard, but not doing much of anything else. I'll go after the Archon, I think, or some other means of life gain. I mean, Griselbrand's about as good an amount of life gain as we can hope for. Could hope for some white mana, I suppose, and go for the Unburial Rites into the bin. Might be the most intelligent thing we could do. Yeah, just hope for white mana and throw that away. But I have a feeling that we're just going to eventually go down to Den of the Bugbear here. So again, animating that, might as well rinse and repeat and force us to get rid of it. Take 5 damage this time, which means we lose to it next turn. Alright, a Faithless Looting could get us into what we need, so shall try that. Draw 2, discard 2. There's a Brainstorm as well, Exhume. Our opponent could get the Skrelv or the Felia. We'll get rid of Dam. The Swords to Plowshares is pretty useless while we don't have white mana. So let's just play Exhume and hope that we can keep our Griselbrand in play. Got 2 mystery cards available to them. Go after the Griselbrand simply for the life gain. And our opponent does choose the Felia. So Flame Slashing onto the Griselbrand. Might be that they've got another burn spell. I was thinking they could have had us block this, or try to get us to block this and then Flame Slash it. But they've got a couple of means of burn, unfortunately, which is going to be a semi-rare occurrence. Don't often expect them to have 2 means of burn. They're not going to be able to rely on that too often. Anyhow, the Felia swings in along with the 2 goblins, so knocking us down to 1. And then they've got the Legion Leadership as well, so I might as well try our luck with a Brainstorm, but I don't see what we're going to draw into here. Our colours have not been fixed. Yep, nothing that we can do there, so just far, far too slow. Need everything to come together in a Reanimator list. You need to be able to discard your stuff, you need the stuff in hand to discard, and you also need the means of reanimation. But I think we played okay there compared to how I've played some other Duel Commander games, so hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you did, then be sure to leave it a like and consider donating on Patreon. Big thank you to those of you who do that already. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.